What a season that was. It feels like forever ago when I made the video with my preseason playoff predictions. Who I thought I was going to get in before the season started. While some obvious ones like Oregon and Georgia were right, who could have ever expected what we have seen from Indiana and SMU, or Arizona State picked to finish last in the Big 12 before the season started, as now won the conference in a playoff spot. It has been a great season of college football, and it should have a great ending with the first 12-team playoff. I'm going to predict all the playoff games that we know so far, and decide who I think will be the national champion in this video. Starting with Indiana and Notre Dame. On December 20th, history is made when Indiana and Notre Dame meet in South Bend that night, and you honestly couldn't have asked for a better game. Notre Dame is the ultimate college football powerhouse, synonymous with winning and excellence. Meanwhile, Indiana has always been kind of overshadowed by their neighbor, or should I say neighbors. Playing in the Big Ten isn't easy, especially now with the West Coast schools. When you think Big Ten, you think Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, not Indiana. But this year has been something special. Curt Cignetti left JMU and brought with him a winning attitude, something the Hoosiers desperately needed. Cignetti spent this season proving that Indiana is more than just a basketball school, and that Indiana has room, or rather needs room, for another football power. They were dominant all year besides a tough trip to Columbus. And quarterback Curtis Rourke was nearly 3,000 yards through the air and 27 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. Notre Dame, on the other hand, won a tough game in College Station to start the year, then followed it up with a stunning upset loss to Northern Illinois, at home. But the Fighting Irish wouldn't let it happen again, and haven't lost a game since, with Marcus Freeman's squad having scored 45 or more 6 times since that loss. Biggest question for both teams, in my opinion, is who have they played. Notre Dame has just 1 ranked win, being against Army, meanwhile Indiana has 0 ranked wins. Indiana looked competitive to start against Ohio State, and then fell apart as the game went on. Notre Dame is a better team on paper, there's no doubt about that. They should win this game. At the same time, however, Indiana can win this game if they control the clock with running the football. That's what they tried to do against Ohio State, but the Buckeyes were able to dominate them on the perimeter. Ultimately, I trust Notre Dame to run the football well and control the game. If they run the ball well with Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love, the Fighting Irish will meet Georgia in round 2. I think that happens, especially because I have more confidence in this Notre Dame defense to get the job done. And they can show up in big moments, with 2 pick sixes to seal the game against USC as an example. I think the Fighting Irish win this one 28-10. Following that, SMU and Penn State open what should be one of the greatest days of football ever on the 21st. Although this game will probably be less exciting, SMU hasn't been a ranked team all year and has losses to BYU and Clemson. However, that Clemson game was remarkably close. Still though, losing to the 16th ranked team in the country without the run game before traveling to Happy Valley, of all places, is a bad sign. If SMU wants to stay in this one, they'll need their defensive line to play like they did in the second half, to try to slow down the Penn State run game, which gave Oregon all sorts of problems. They also need Kevin Jennings to play like he did in the second half, to keep Penn State's defense guessing. However, it won't be easy. Drew Aller has been playing at a high level, despite the mistakes, and if Penn State can slow down the run game, the secondary has been concerning at times, which will be a challenge if they face Tyler Warren and the receiving threat he presents. Abdul Carter and the Nittany Lions defense has struggled against Dylan Gabriel and the high-flying Ducks offense, but SMU hasn't proven themselves to be close to that level. I think James Franklin finally wins a big game and ends a great SMU season 45-7. Clemson somehow made it here, and looking back on it, that probably should have been more expected. With Mack Brown leaving North Carolina, only Dabo Swinney and Kirby Smart are current head coaches who have won national titles. Dabo's Tigers did not play the level of Kirby's Bulldogs, and that showed in their early season matchup. I bring that up because Clemson will be facing a very similarly talented Texas team, who's just a few plays away from beating Georgia in a SEC championship meeting and rematch from earlier in the season. Texas has more talent, and Clemson's dealing with injuries to their running backs, with Phil Maffa and Jay Haynes, which almost cost them the game against SMU since they were unable to run the ball effectively. So Clemson will rely on 3 things: health, especially for their running backs, Caleb Klubnik, who will need to step up and make plays against one of the best defenses in the country, no matter what the injury situation looks like, and creating turnovers. Quinn Ewers hasn't played great in recent weeks and seems to be lacking confidence. Depending on how he plays in the first half, he might even be playing for his job at this point, with Manning waiting on the sidelines. If Clemson can generate turnovers, or at least avoid them offensively, establish some sort of presence in the running game, with a good performance from Klubnik, they have a shot. However, I think Texas is simply too talented. They have athletes everywhere, and even if Ewers struggles, they have Arch Manning as the backup. So it takes something crazy for the Longhorns to lose at home in Austin. If Texas plays a complete game, which they are capable of but haven't always shown it, then we may very well see a repeat of Georgia's 34-3 domination of Clemson at the start of the year, but this time with Texas at the end. Texas wins 27-17. If you're in Vegas on playoff weekend, I don't recommend betting on this one. Ohio State and Tennessee both have uncertainties surrounding them. The Volunteers have actually looked very impressive and have had a complete season from start to finish, unlike some other SEC programs. It's less about what they have done and more about what they can do. They failed to beat Georgia on the road and what was essentially a playoff game for the Bulldogs, which would probably be the closest comparison to what they'll face in Columbus. But they were at no point out of the game. Interestingly, Tennessee has been kind of left out of the favorites, a title which has mostly belonged to Oregon, Georgia, Texas, and Ohio State. Speaking of the Buckeyes, they might wish they were on the road this week after an embarrassing loss to Michigan. The Ohio State offense struggled greatly, and even without an effective pass attack, the Wolverines' offense is still able to run the ball and control the clock, and ultimately win the game. But Tennessee smartly will try to do the same, because Dylan Sampson, with 1,485 yards and 22 touchdowns, can take over a game. If that happens, the Volunteers will be well on their way to victory. Tennessee will win this game if they dominate in the trenches like Michigan, by slowing the game down and controlling the clock. Nico, I still don't know how to say his last name, so I'm going to call him Nico, can also take over a game. But Tennessee must be careful not to make this a track meet. Ohio State is arguably the best athletes on the perimeter in all of college football. Emeka Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith are both game changers, and their absence, in large part due to play calling, was certainly noticed. If Ohio State can throw the ball effectively, and Will Howard can avoid mistakes, the game should go Ohio State's way. At the end of the day, I think Tennessee has been more consistent, and I can trust the quarterback more. I think Tennessee will be able to establish a run game, but if they can't, I still think Nico can get them the win. Ohio State, especially offensively, has been inconsistent, and I don't know if they'll be able to get their playmakers the ball like they need to. Tennessee 24, Ohio State 23. So there it is, my first round predictions. Right now, my national championship pick is Oregon. I think they have the best quarterback in the playoffs, and the team is playing well on both sides of the ball. Although that defense could still use some improvement. But for now, Oregon, Georgia, Boise State, and Arizona State await the results of these 4 games just like we do, in a historic and exciting season like no other. As always, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.